Hey everybody. Today this is going to be a supplementary video to the third Paper to Pixel to Paper Again article. And because we're mostly talking about organizational things, today I'm going to be talking about how to organize your files for a book project. Like I mentioned in the article that is linked to in the notes below this video, when you have a really graphically intensive book, it is really important that you organize your files in a way that is comprehensive and is going to make sense. If you think about it, if you, through your organizational system, are losing, let's say, as little as a minute per page over the course of a 600-page book, that is going to be 10 hours worth of effort that you have lost. And so every time you do one of these organizational things at the front end, the goal is that you're not spending time having to do anything on the back end. And so I always make sure that I've organized my book project files before I've actually started working on it. So today, let's take a look at the files for Form and Void, which is the book that I'm working on. One of the 5 books that I've been working on that are not out yet, but I've done the pre-press and the layout for one of the Cerebus volumes. And right here, you can see these are my file folders for the project. And these right here are, let me see if I can change the view so it's zoomed in a little bit more. You know what? This is going to be how it is. Okay. This is the files for just the scanning. So this folder right here is on one hard drive, and these are just the files as they came in. You notice that I have these separated out. This one says Cerebus Archive Batch A, Cerebus Archive Batch B. So I actually separated these out. These were scanned at different times just to make sure, just in case there was something some setting that changed during the scanning process. I want to make sure that when I batch these files, that they all are going to come out exactly the same, and that means making sure that the batches are set up together. And so we've got these, which are scanned in Kitchener on a certain scanner with Dave's assistant scanned them, and then these are scanned by Gerhard on a different scanner. And so you can see, even though these have slightly different naming conventions, these are all named at least in a consistent manner. So the scans that came from Dave have the name of the issue, and they have the page number, and all the formatting is exactly the same. Now, if these came to me and they were not named this way, I would use a tool called Batch Rename Utility. Batch Rename Utility. You can use that to do all types of interesting finessing very quickly to your file names, and it's come in handy, I mean, I don't know, half a dozen times at this point. So anyway, here's how I kept these separated. And you can see I even have a folder full of blurry scans that were scanned in a certain method that wasn't acceptable, but I kept those just because, just in case there was something wrong with the new scans and the artwork wasn't going to be available anymore. You can see that the negatives are separated, and you can see I've got 2 different batches of negatives as well. All of these different types of materials are basically separated out into their own folders so that they can be batched together, so that when I make a Photoshop action, I can run that action on that entire folder worth of materials. And now over here, we can see the work materials for that book. And this is basically after the batch action has been run. So I have a folder that says adjusted for cleanup. And what that actually means is the Cerebus Archive scans. And you can see that I've got this set up so that I have the date modified is the second piece of information that I have here. And the reason for that is because I can see when I did the cleanup, or if I did the cleanup. So if you can see from these dates the amount of time that it took me to do each of the pages. So like this one took me 11 minutes. This one took me 4 minutes. That one took me 5 minutes. A lot of these are slower. And then I'll hit a bunch of them that are really fast. And this is the back matter folder. And this is stuff that are notes pages for the book that were scanned with a different method. And you can see these are the pages that came in from Gerhard that are ready to be cleaned. And in this case, I've already done that before. And then these are the rest of the negative back matter rotated. In other words, these are ready to be batched. And then in here I have the actual layouts for the book. These are the InDesign layout documents. And then I have a folder over here called bitmaps for placement. And this is all of the flat files that were created by my actions. And these are the actual files that are going to be dropped in to the book. So each of these files is the actual file that's going to be dropped in to the layout. The reason I keep all of the cleaned up stuff that is not converted to bitmap is because there are lots of different things that we might want to do to a book at a later date, like for instance have a blow up of a certain page, or print the whole book in a different size or a different format. And you might want to go back to the pages that are still layered grayscale files. I keep all of those things separately. And that way, if somebody wants to print the book exactly as is, you can just give them the previous layout. And if they want to do something different to it, you can once again write an action that will adjust from the grayscale layered cleanup files. All of this stuff is very, very manageable because I keep everything contained in its own folder. Try not to deal with a lot of nesting folders. I try not to deal with a lot of other different things. You just basically, every time you have a separate source of material, you go ahead and keep those things separated. And when I talk about all of this organizational stuff, the goal is to make this process as painless as possible. Because when you have a book that has hundreds of pages, and this particular book is more than 300 pages long, you're just talking about a very, very slow process. And keeping all of the naming as consistent as possible, keeping all the files as consistent as possible, all of those things are going to save you time and save you hassle and save you frustration on the back end of a project. Let me tell you, there's nothing like somebody asking you to change something and then going back and realizing that you don't have the ability to change it because you don't have that file anymore or something is gone. I'm going to talk about backup later, but keep in mind that all of these things are backed up. I have a backup drive here, and I also have a remote backup that updates all the time, which I have a service called Backblaze that does a remote backup for me, cloud-based backup. And there are other ways to take care of that particular thing, but I think that is probably more than enough for now. Only other thing I wanted to say is that when you are looking at these files here, there's a lot of different ways you can get Windows to display this data here. Sometimes you might want to see thumbnails like this when you're actually looking for a certain kind of content. You don't have a printed out version of it yet. And other times, you might want to have your view be quote unquote details. And these details can be modified. If you right click up here, you can see things like date created, the very day that file was created. And you can actually organize by date created. So if I click this, then this entire list is now in the order of the files being created. And you can see when they were actually scanned or copied over to the drive or whatever. You can have tags displayed. You can see authors displayed. Like I said, date modified is the thing that's most important for me, because date modified tells me when did I open this thing up and do something with it. Now in this case, these were all scanned. You can actually just see the scan time, as all this tells you. The Dave's assistant scanned these, and it took about a minute per page. And you can see that data right there. And there are other interesting things available to you by going to the properties and things like that. But generally these types of things, the most important thing is knowing how to organize that. So in the properties panel, you can see the software that scanned it. You can see these were scanned with ViewScan. You can see the exact time that this file was scanned. You can see the bit depth, the horizontal and vertical resolution, and you can even see the scanner that was used. In this case, Epson Expression 11,000. All of those pieces of information are hiding inside of that details properties panel. Anyway, I hope this was helpful for you, and remember, this stuff is meant to serve you, not the other way around. Actually, should we take a look at bulk rename utility? So let's just go ahead and open it up. Bulk rename utility is a very interesting little device here, and I'm going to go ahead and go to that same thing we were looking at before. Let's actually go ahead and take a look at this. So these are Gerhard scans for the last day, the last Cerebus book. Now, if I wanted to add something to this, bulk rename utility allows you to do all different types of things. If you look over here, you'll see you can add a prefix, for instance. So for instance, I could go and I could change this so that they all said Cerebus last day at the front. And now we've got a little better naming convention. You could also insert at a certain position. So for instance, if I decided I wanted to insert something at the 9th character, I could put Gerhard. And let's go ahead and move that back so that that would happen after the issue. And then I could put in a space. And so then I could have the name of the person who scanned them. And then you don't have to have it applied to just the whole folder. You can just click them manually. So you can hold Control and click just the ones that you want to be renamed. And that is a possibility. And then once you are set up with what you want to do, you hit this rename here, and it will rename everything in that folder, and you will be done. I cannot tell you how much time something like this will save you if you have any issues with your files. Now, it's best to just go ahead and do it as you're scanning, but if for some reason you can't do that, you need to make a bulk rename. This is the way to go. So definitely check out this utility. Maybe this is not the sexiest stuff in the world, but boy, is it useful. All right. Hope you have a good one. Take care.